Well, hello. Happy Thursday. Welcome to a very special edition of Happy Hour. Well, actually, it's not really that special. It's not really, oh my hair is not cooperating. It's not a special edition of Happy Hour. It just happens to be a day earlier than my usual happy hours. Happy Hour is, and I'm going to explain why in a second, but for those of you who don't know, maybe you're new, maybe you're just tuning in because you aren't usually available on Fridays when I do Happy Hour. That's awesome. Happy Hour is a time where we come together, we watch a woke training or a presentation, we mock it relentlessly. I drink beer. You can drink whatever you want. You are welcome to drink beer. You are welcome to drink water or tea or coffee or juice. You're welcome to drink something stronger than beer if you feel so inclined. Hey, it's 5 o'clock. It's 5 o'clock. So, if it's not 5 o'clock where you are, it's 5 o'clock somewhere. And, it helps us to get through the training because these tend to be long, they tend to be complex, and sometimes, it doesn't hurt. So we are going to be watching a woke training today. Now, Progressive Rising, can you do a Kate Slater video? Yes, I am going to do a Kate Slater video. I have not forgotten. Don't worry. For those of you who don't know who Kate Slater is, you will at some point. You will. Go. Kate Slater used to be a mainstay on Happy Hour, just accidentally, not even on purpose. Usually I do happy hours on Fridays at 3 p.m. Eastern time, but I'm doing it a day early because tomorrow I will be getting a tattoo. Do you guys want to see the tattoo I'm going to get? I'm going to show you anyway. I'll show you the tattoo I'm going to get. I have been waiting to start this tattoo for almost a year because the tattoo artist that I am working with is so high demand. That's how far out he's booked. I have been waiting for this since the beginning of the year. So I'm getting a sleeve. I am going to sleeve out this entire arm. I have always wanted a sleeve my entire life. And the whole thing was, you'll regret it. You'll regret it. Well, I'm 40 years old, man. I'm 40 years old. I work for myself. It's time. Tattoos are accepted. It's time. And so I will show you the tattoo that I'm going to get. This is the comp. This isn't the actual one. I'm going to explain. We're going to change a couple things, but this is the sleeve. We're starting with the sun. The sun is going to be on my shoulder. The sun, this is a sleeve about spirituality. The sun stands for God, source. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be so bright and colorful. I'm not getting Saturn. Saturn, we're going to change to the moon. It's going to look more illustrative than this. It's not going to be like it's not going to look exactly like this, but this is what it's going to be. We're starting with the sun. It's going to be, I'm doing a session a month for 6 months, spaced out 1 month apart. I'm really excited about it. It might not even be done after 6 months. Well, we're going to see how it goes, but this is the basic gist of where we're starting. I'm so excited. This sleeve is going to people think my beliefs are weird. Listen, this sleeve is all about my spiritual beliefs. People think I invented it overnight. I have been planning to get this tattooed on my body all year. So I'm excited. That's what I'm going to be doing tomorrow. Victor is coming. He's coming. You're going to be able to see pictures. I'm going to try to teach him how to do video. But I will be posting some pictures. But that's why I'm doing happy hour today instead of tomorrow, because when you wait almost a full year for a tattoo artist schedule to open up, you take the appointment slots that you're given. Okay? That's the deal. I think it's going to look beautiful. I'm really excited. I don't know how you guys feel about tattoos, but I love them. I think that when they're done really cool, when they're done well, they're art. It is an art form. I think it's absolutely beautiful. I wanted something. When I told the tattoo artist, I gave him a lot of creative licensure. And I said, I just want the most beautiful tattoo you've ever tattooed. And I want the color to be able to be seen across the room. And I want it to be gorgeous and stunning. So that's what I'm doing tomorrow. And that's why we are doing happy hour today. Now, today, we have got what looks to be like a little bit of an epic presentation today. Today, we are going to go back into the critical. This isn't even going back. This was streamed like a couple months ago, a month and a half ago, maybe. This is a panel called Critical Race Theory, Truths and Myths, Part 1. Yes, there is a Part 2 to this. Yes, we may watch Part 2 as well. We'll see how Part 1 goes. This presentation sought to frame and explain four central tenets of critical race theory as expressed by theorists Derek Bell, Kimberly Crenshaw, Cheryl Harris, Richard Delgado, Patricia Williams, Gloria Latson-Billings, Tara Yoso, among others. Central tenet number one. I felt like this was a good place to go because I thought that this would be like a good overview of critical race theory. I think this is going to be great for buzzword bingo. I just have a suspicion this is good. I always say things are going to be great for buzzword bingo, and like 50% of the time they turn out being great. So, you know, take my thoughts on it with a grain of salt, I suppose. But what we're going to cover: number one, race is a social construction. Number two, individuals can be racist, but racism is perpetuated on a societal and structural level. Tenet three, racism is commonplace, normal, rather than rare, abnormal. And tenet four, listening to and understanding the lived experiences of individuals. If you have lived experiences in buzzword bingo, you already got one. You already won. We'll talk about buzzword bingo in a minute if you don't know what it is. The lived experiences of individuals is essential for understanding how racism works to create inequities. The presenters begin to unpack the central myths being used by political and social opponents to demonize and misrepresent critical race theory. And this will be continued during part two in our November meeting. They've already filmed part two. It was asserted that critical race theory is a powerful diagnostic and research lens that is essential to our pursuit of justice and oneness. Oneness. Isn't it interesting that they use the word oneness? I'm sure that doesn't bode well for what we have to look forward to. They got a whole panel here. It's 2 hours. We're going to see how long we last. We're going to see. Melissa says, does it hurt a lot? Yeah, I mean, tattoos hurt. Some hurt more than others. I have one on my forearm. That didn't really hurt that bad. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's going to hurt, but it's like, it's art. Sometimes we have to suffer for art. How long will it take? So I am doing 6 4-hour sessions. So I should be in the chair for about 4 hours. I've sat up to 6 hours before. So this will not be the longest sitting I've ever had, but the tattoo artist, like he's super regimented and he only books in 4-hour slots. So again, you wait for a tattoo artist that's booked out a year in advance. You work on his thing. He's super talented. Do you guys want to see his portfolio before we get started? I'm going to show you anyway. I'm going to show you what this guy has done. And then I promise we're going to do happy hour. Give me 1 sec. I'll bring it up just so you can see like the level of this guy. He is like, I'm going to nerd out about this a little bit. I'm sorry. I know you guys came for woke training. I know you did. But let me show you this guy's portfolio. So beautiful. All right. This is him. His name is Sean. It's funny because when I first had my first consultation with him, I was freaking out the night before. And I was like, what if he knows who I am? What if he hates me? He's going to screw up a tattoo that I'm going to have on my body permanently if he hates me. And so the appointment was like 8:30 in the morning. I'm normally in bed at 8:30 in the morning. I do not get up early these days. And so like I Skyped into him and he answers the Skype. He said, "Oh, the first thing he says is, 'Oh, Carlin, I didn't know I was talking to you today.'" And I was like, "Oh shit, he knows who I am." And I said, "Do you know who I am?" And he said, "Yes." And I said, "Do you like me or hate me?" He says, "I like everyone who seeks the truth." I was like, "Yes." But this is some of his work. Look at this beautiful tattoo. This will give you an idea. Actually, this will give you an idea. Let me show you the comp for this tattoo. So he posted that. He posted this on his Instagram a while ago and he says, "I just like designed this. Does anyone want this tattoo?" So this was the comp, like what you guys just saw for mine. And then this is the tattoo he created out of that. How stunning is that? Beautiful, right? It's beautiful. He's done all sorts of space stuff. He's done like I'm going to get the moon. So the Saturn, instead of the Saturn on my tattoo, we're going to do the moon. So you can see that. Beautiful. Let's see. There's one this is the one so I'm going to be getting the sun on my shoulder, just like this guy got kind of like a galaxy. So he's got some game. He's got some game. He's got some game. All right. Enough talk about tattoos. I swear. We're going to get back to woke training now. I'm really excited, guys. I am. I'm a nerd. Okay. Let's get back to our woke training for the day. We've got to get into some business. So that's what we're going to watch. It's going to be a couple hours long. We'll see how it goes. Apparently, we're going to get through a lot of tenets on critical race theory. Now, one of the things we do on happy hour is we do play buzzword bingo. If you have not yet generated your buzzword bingo card, the information is in the description below. Just go on, you generate a card. Everyone's card is unique. You get a free space in the middle, and then you try to get a bingo line, or you can get corners. Either is fine. If you hit bingo, you can yell it out in the chat. Now, sometimes I change the rules for bingo. Sometimes I do like bingo bonuses throughout the presentation. The reason that we do bingo is it just keeps us sharp. Make sure we're paying attention. You don't win anything if you get bingo. But after someone gives a bingo in the chat for getting a line or corners, then we go for blackout bingo. No one's gotten blackout bingo yet. I'm still waiting for it. The first person who gets blackout bingo, I will give you a free membership for life in my locals community. I'm not kidding. I will give you free membership for life in my locals community to the number one person who gets blackout bingo. So make sure you do that. Nebin Dog said, did Joshua advise you on the planets? Of course he did. The reason that I didn't want Saturn is because Saturn is about constriction. And Joshua and I were like, that's a bad idea. It's like a Capricorn thing. I don't get along well with Capricorns. So it was about constriction, whereas the moon kind of balances the sun. So yeah, I consulted Joshua. Joshua had a say. Now, the other thing that you should know is I am simulcasting this stream on several different channels. I'm, of course, on my main YouTube channel. I am, of course, on Rockfin and Odyssey, not on Rumble, who's threatening to sue Odyssey because you have to pay to live stream on Rumble, and I think that's bullshit. But I am on Odyssey, but I'm also on my second YouTube channel, Actively Unwoke. Now, this is important because I will be moving Happy Hour exclusively to Actively Unwoke on YouTube starting in January. Okay? The link is in the description. It's youtube.com/activelyunwoke. Please make sure you are subscribed over there. And starting in January, we're going to be doing Happy Hour exclusively over there. Okay? So we're kind of counting down. I've been simulcasting them on both for a while, but it's always been the plan to ultimately move Happy Hour to Actively Unwoke because I'm going to be doing different content on that channel that I'm going to be doing on my main channel starting next year. I'm really excited about it. I think you guys are going to like it. Actively Unwoke is going to be much more centered around practical things that you can do to fight back against the woke in your life, like super practical, but we're also going to do Happy Hour there for fun. So please make sure you're subscribed to Actively Unwoke. And of course, as our final order of business before I pour a beer and we get started, if you would like to support the work I'm doing, please join my Locals community as a supporter. Locals, for the moment, is the best place on the internet. Listen, I know that people are skeptical about Rumble buying Locals. I have concerns about it. However, I will tell you this. Locals has not changed one bit since Rumble bought it, and I continue to have assurances that Locals will continue to operate completely separately and independently as their own kind of thing, and they just get to take advantage of Rumble resources and cash and things like that, which I think is fine, and I really hope that that's the case. I love Locals. I think Locals is the best. And I think I have the best community on Locals. I love my Locals members here so much. We do so much cool stuff together. We've got so much stuff planned that I'm going to be doing for them next year. So make sure you join. You can join my Locals for free. You don't have to pay. You can join for free at kb.locals.com. However, if you would like to become a supporter and unlock all the features in Locals, you want to head over to kb.locals.com/support. On YouTube, it is pinned to the top of the chat. In the other places I'm broadcasting, it is in the description. And you can become a supporter at $5 a month, less than a cup of coffee at Starbucks. You can become a supporter at $50 a year, which gives you 2 months for free. You can also make a one-time gift, and my Locals community really does help support the work I do. They are pivotal to it. I would not be able to be doing this stuff if it wasn't for members of my Locals. And I have a goal. I would like to bring in 100 new local supporters by the end of the year. When you are a local supporter, you're going to get access to 2 Zoom calls with me and the community every single week. I spend about 6 hours a week on Zoom with my locals, just chit-chatting, and, they get asked questions, and we have discussions, and we help each other, we support each other. It's awesome. You're going to be able to unlock all the features of the website. You're going to be able to do book club. You're going to be able to get into our supporter Discord, all that stuff exclusively for locals supporters. So if you value what I'm doing, if you have fun with it, please consider becoming a member today. Carl G says, I'm a Capricorn. Carl, I think you and I would get along. Carl, I'm sure you're a wonderful person. Giorgio is a Capricorn as well. I'm sure you guys are great. I don't mean any offense. Please don't take it personally. I'm sure you're wonderful people, and we would, in fact, get along. All right, guys, let's get started now. I do have to pour myself a beer. I'm drinking something boring today, but I actually really like it. I found one case left at my supermarket of Shipyard Pumpkinhead beer because, of course, it's winter. They've moved on to the winter beers now. But you listen, man, this is not a fancy craft beer. Well, like one time, I guess, was considered a craft beer. Now it's kind of like it's like upscale supermarket beer. But like, I actually really do like Shipyard Pumpkinhead. It is one of my favorite kind of general pumpkin beers. Comes in cans, so it's easy for me to do for happy hour. Don't need a fancy can opener. And of course, I drink beer out of a wine glass because I like to feel bougie. There it goes. If you want to be fancy, one of the tricks with Shipyard Pumpkinhead, if you're feeling like Shipyard Pumpkinhead sometimes isn't strong enough for you, you know what you can do? Put a shot of vanilla vodka in it. Tastes great. You can do a rim with like cinnamon and sugar like that you put on toast. Cheers to all of you for rounding out the week. We'll just pretend it's Friday. It's fine. Friday's going to go by quick. Carl G says, I'm a Capricorn. I think we get along. Thank you for the super chat, Carl. I appreciate it. All right, guys, let's dig into this presentation. Let's get this party started. Let me know if you're ready to get this party started in the chat. Let me just look on Odyssey and Rockfin, make sure everything's going as it should be. Looks like everything's up and running. Guys, please make sure. Also, I know I've given you a lot of asks. I know I have, but we're going to be here together for a while. Please make sure you're subscribed on alt tech platforms like Odyssey. Odyssey is my favorite alternative. I'm not counting locals in this. Obviously, make sure you're in my locals too. Again, you can join for free at kb.locals.com. But please make sure you're subscribed on places like Odyssey. I think it's important. All right, let me make sure my sound is set up correctly because I always forget to do this before we get started. Setting up my sound so I can actually hear it. Okay, we're good. All right, let's get this party started, guys. Let's go.
Thank you for being with us, for sharing your time, and for sharing your thoughts on what is a chilly evening.
Let me know if the sound isn't working for some reason.
We respectfully ask that you mute yourself when speaking to minimize the noise during tonight's presentation and discussion. My name is Yassine Kout. I am one of your two facilitators. I would also like to acknowledge our other co-facilitator and founder of Common Threads, my good friend Chuck Edgerton. We start this Common Threads gathering by acknowledging that this country, the United States of America, has been built on stolen land and on the back of enslaved people.
Land blessing!
This
Land
Common Thread
blessing!
gathering is part of a third...
Land blessing! We never get a land blessing anymore. I feel like land blessings have gone out of style. So if you just have a land blessing on your bingo card, congratulations. That's like one of the biggest hurdles for buzzword bingo is we never get land blessings anymore.
Iteration of Common Threads. This group started at Randolph Community College in central North Carolina about 30 years ago. Our gatherings then transitioned to the Benjamin Public Library in Greensboro, North Carolina. We now hold these meetings online due to the pandemic. While we held these meetings in Greensboro, we acknowledged that our gatherings were taking place on the indigenous land of the Saponi people. We now hold our meetings online, and we still want to acknowledge that fact. So Chuck, would you like to share some more information about the history of Common Threads?
How you doing? Sure. I'd just like to ask Jeremy if you could mute yourself, that would help us. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Yeah, it's so nice to have you all here. Common Threads was an idea that's now about 30 years old, and it's the original purpose of Common Threads is to find points of commonality and oneness, and to talk about difficult issues. And so it's of course, tonight is a perfect example of that. This is a very challenging issue that's contentious, and it's important for us to develop ways to talk about things. So as I did this at Randolph Community College, a big part of the goal was to just give people a chance to figure out, how do you have dialogue? How do we discuss issues that are really contentious and difficult? And just by being in the practice of it can be helpful. So tonight, as we go through this and as we go through our discussion, keep that in mind, that it's the topic, but it's also learning, how do we
Marie, I think they're going to make it bigger.
Civility and kindness.
I think they're not going to do this the whole time.
Intelligence with very difficult and contentious issues like this. So nice to have you all here. And Yassine said that he's in Georgia, and I was just gonna add, and all of you have seen the invitation for the meeting tonight. Yassine is at the University of North Georgia. And he got his PhD from UNC Greensboro, which is where I'm teaching now. And so we met each other, at Randolph Community College, and we've kept up ever since. And Yassine is a very. I love working with Yassine. His perspectives are so amazing. He's from a French background and a North African background. He really brings a lot to the table. So I so appreciate working with him over these years.
And also lock my car with the wrong.
Well, thank you, Chuck. Thank you, Chuck. And you two, we're hooded. You had that honor after some hard work.
Yes.
At the University of Manitoba.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very glad that you invited me to work with you and to co-facilitate these discussions.
Thanks. It's been good. So we just want you to know kind of who we are a little bit, and the background of this group, because we do meet every month, and next month we're actually going to continue this discussion. We just want to let you all know tonight is recorded, as you know, and I'll send out the link once we have it all complete. But there'll also be next month where we'll continue the discussion a little bit more into the attack on critical race theory. We'll be discussing more about that. Tonight we're going to touch on it, but next time is really when we're going to get more deep into that discussion.
Yes, because usually Common Threads work as a free discussion group. Other times we actually focus on a predetermined topic with one or more experts. And tonight is sort of a bit different in the sense that, and be different and also be connected. We are going to focus on a single topic that's made the news, but we will be introducing it not as experts, because our areas of interest and expertise are not critical race theory, but we do bring an academic perspective on that.
They're not experts in critical race theory, yet they're presenting critical race theory. Oh, this is going to go great.
And so we have done some research to put together a presentation that is not academic, but we hope is informative.
This is going to go great.
Because even if critical race theory has made national news and is talked about from dinner tables to school boards, we do not hear what it actually is. So we would like to spend this evening diving into that.
Yeah. And there's so much going on. I mean, it's affecting Yassine. It's affecting us here. We just saw a letter came out from one of the political parties here in Asheboro, North Carolina, warning voters about critical race theory just today. And this is coming up for the school board elections, which will be coming up in a week or so. So this is very current, and we're so glad that we can have a chance to talk about it tonight.
All right. So I'll go ahead and share my screen.
Okay, great. And the way we're going to do it tonight is, if you really have a pressing question, you can raise your hand if you use the raising hand button to do that. But after each section, we do have kind of a clarifying questions time. So there'll be some moments during the presentation where you can ask some questions to clarify things, but then we'll have really the
Well, okay, so I want to address this. Eric in the chat says some of these folks look like they're on life support. Isn't that sad? Isn't that a sad thing? These people, the people who are older, have probably lived through periods in American history when there is like a lot more actual racism than there is today. Now, I'm not going to say there's no racism today because I don't think that's true. I think there's plenty of racism. I think a really good example of racism, of systemic racism, is the fact that vaccine mandates and passports cause racial disparities because African Americans are less likely to be vaccinated than white Americans. So that is an actual example of systemic racism. I'm not going to lie and say I don't think there's racism in America. I do think there's racism in America. But the older people on this call have lived through periods of American history where there's significantly more racism than there is today. And yet they're still sitting through a 2-hour presentation telling them that they're more racist than they, like, convincing them that they're racist when they're probably not. I think it's a sad thing.
general discussion at the end. So we're going to go, how long are we going to go? What are we going for, Yassine?
I mean, I'm hoping that we finish this within 40-ish minutes, and it leaves another 40-ish minutes for open discussion. But as Chuck shared, if you have a question,
I just want to note that this is a 2-hour presentation, so I don't know what they're talking about when they say 40 minutes. Something obviously went off the rails.
we would like to take them as they come.
Right.
I don't know that we're going to get through the whole 2 hours.
Typically to 8:30, right? And then if people need to leave at that point, feel free to leave, but we'll stay on till about 9 for further discussion if anyone would like to do that. Okay. So that's the plan.
All right. So we titled our presentation Critical Race Theory, Truths and Myths, because we will spend a good chunk of this presentation tonight going over the truths about critical race theory. And then at the end, we'll also address some myths because many of them are vehicled through the news and other means. So we do want to address that as well.
Another land acknowledgement. Holy hell.
So we did the land acknowledgement, but we just wanted to have a slide up as well. And land acknowledgements, it's important that we do more than just the acknowledgement, but we think about what can we do to honor those
It's the
that
first
have
double land acknowledgement
been so
presentation we've ever
harmed
had.
by the stealing of land and the decimating of cultures. So it's important to think about what we can do in terms of atoning for that and in terms of maybe reparations for that.
They want people who were not alive when this land was stolen to atone for it. Okay.
And the point also is that we wanted to mention the different theorists that contributed to critical race theory. Some of them are the original theorists, but several ones have also contributed to this field. So we wanted to, for everybody to be familiar with the names such as Derek Bell, Kimberly Crenshaw, Cheryl Harris, Richard Delgado, Patricia Williams, Gloria Latson-Billings, and Tara Ioso, among others.
Right. Yeah, and I think it's important. We want to name the folks that have put together the theory, and it's been it's an evolving. Theories are evolving processes, and we wanted to say something about that too.
All the
that
more
a theory
reason to
is really
drink,
a
Mighty
way
Witch.
of looking at
All the
things
more
and a
reason
way
to
of kind
drink.
of understanding things. It isn't a curriculum by itself. It isn't meant to be anything like that, but it's just a lens, a way to look at the world. And so these theorists have really done us a great favor to pull together a lot of these the different pieces of critical race theory to help us understand race in America. It's really the focus is to understand race in America.
It'll be fascinating to
also
see
should
how
say,
beginners
yes, and right,
actually
that
interpret
it was
this stuff
begun
because
as
they're not experts. They've
kind of
already
a
said
legal
that.
theory used at the graduate level in among legal scholars and economic scholars.
Wait,
So that's really
hang on. Gratitude always. What is wrong with CRT? Gratitude always. Stick around. Pull up a chair. Pour yourself a drink. We'll explain. That's the whole purpose of happy hour, is to explain precisely what is wrong with critical race theory.
it began, and that's probably where it's still used the most.
Mhm.
But there's a lot of value for us to understand it too.
Yes. And we want to focus tonight on 4 tenets of critical race theory. There are other ways to make sense of critical race theory. We found a few other articles. I mentioned 5. But since it is an academic concept, we tried to focus on the ones that were the most accessible and that would speak to the most people. That's also a proof that critical race theory is not taught in K-12. This is something that is much more advanced than we could do.
I should make critical race theory is not taught in K through 12 schools a bingo square. I really should, because they say this all the time. Now we have proved ad nauseum. In fact, Happy Hour just last week was put on by a school of education for teachers. It was all about critical race theory and anti-racism. How is it possible that a presentation put on by a school of education for teachers would mean, like, why would that presentation even exist if critical race theory wasn't being taught in schools? So no, just to display, if anyone is, we have dispelled this myth on multiple occasions on this channel. Critical race theory is absolutely in K through 12 schools. Anyone who tells you otherwise is lying.
In elementary school, for example.
It's absolutely in elementary schools. That is a lie. It is not just taught in law schools.
So we're listing all 4 of them here for us, and then we'll go break down each one. We'll go look at each one. But tenet 1, race is a social construction.
I'm going to place a bet right now that I know more about critical race theory than these guys do. I'm going to place a bet right now that I know more about this topic than they do. I would actually place a bet that most of you in the chat who are regulars for Happy Hour know more about this topic than they do. Let's see if you agree with me, in the chat that I and or many of you know more about critical race theory than these guys do, please type yes into the chat. If you do not agree with that, please type no into the chat.
Basically, the idea that race isn't really scientific. We'll get into that.
Race isn't scientific.
Number 2, individuals can be racist, but racism is perpetuated on a societal and structural level. So we'll get into that more deeply. 3, racism is commonplace, normal.
Yeah, everyone's saying yes in the chat. Everyone is saying yes in the chat.
Means
we all know more about critical race theory than these guys.
Racism is everywhere. And 4 is listening to and understanding the lived experiences of individuals is essential for understanding how racism works and to create inequities. So those are the 4.
So we will start with race as a social construction.
Okay, let me tell you what they should say. And then we'll see if they actually say it. So what critical race theorists believe is that race was not actually a thing until America. Yes, you heard me correctly. Critical race theorists believe that race was invented by America, by the founding of America. Because prior to the founding of America, if you had skin that looked like mine, they might refer to you as Irish or English or German. They don't refer to you as white. They refer to you by your ethnicity. They believe that when Black people were brought to America in 1619, That was when race started, because race was created as a social construct to separate all white people from all Black people, and was specifically designed to oppress Black people to build systems that would keep white people in positions of power through all time. That is why they believe that race is a social construct and not grounded in science. I don't know how they explain melanin. If it's not grounded in science, I don't know how they explain that, like, we physically look different, because that's kind of like a science thing. I mean, I would think. I don't think it's magic. But that's what they mean. Let's see if that's what they say.
This is a quote that I love from James Baldwin, which is, "It's up
Lived
to you.
experience is on the bingo
As long
card.
as you think you're white, there's no hope for you. As long as you think you're white."
So not everyone gets every word on the bingo card. Lived experience is actually on the bingo card. You just might not have it. I'm pretty sure it's on the bingo card. If it's not on the bingo card, I'll definitely put it on the bingo card. But it generates, there's a whole list of words, and it's random what you get every time.
I'm going to be forced to think I'm Black. And I think this addresses the idea of race as a social construction, and that it was created. There was a time before we were white and Black.
There's a time before we were white and Black.
I'll read this one.
Okay.
Whiteness is a
Yeah.
modern human creation. That is,
Steven
there was
says
a
it's on
time
his bingo
before
card.
whiteness. As such, there can be a time after whiteness, but we can choose to demolish whatever we have built.
And I know this issue.
What they mean by whiteness, for those of you who are dropping by Happy Hour for the first time, what they mean by whiteness is not actually the color of your skin. How critical race theorists define whiteness is, does anyone in the chat know? This is a pop quiz. Does anyone in the chat, if someone in the chat gets the right answer, you all get a free bingo square. Does anyone in the chat that attends Happy Hour on a regular basis know what whiteness really means? Because it's not the color of your skin. I know it may seem like it is. I know this is going to be really confusing. People are going to be like, Carly, it's critical race theory. No, it's not actually the color of your skin. What does whiteness actually mean? Giorgio, close. No, it's not capitalism. Well, it's like you guys are skirting around it. You're skirting around it. Patrice says power, kind of. It's critical race theory is not about race. It's about power. I get where you guys are. Yes, Reagan got it. Yes. Reagan got it. Yes, you all get a free bingo square. Whiteness means who owns the power structure. Who owns the power structure? Who is the landlord? Who is the CEO of the company? Who had, so anyone who said power, you're not wrong. But this is specifically what I was looking for. Whiteness means who owns the power structure. And this is why someone like Larry Elder, who is very Black, can be considered a white supremacist. This is why. This is why a Latino landlord who owns several buildings will be considered white by critical race theorists, because he's a landlord. He owns the power structure.
Of whiteness is confusing, I think, because as a white person myself, trying to sort this out is really important, and it's not easy to sort out, because when we identify ourselves as white, we tend to think that's who we actually are. And my feeling now, as I describe myself, is that I am not white. I've been whited. I'm not white. I've been whited.
Oh,
And
good luck with that.
what I mean by that is this social construction has laid on me something that is not really who I am.
Watch this old white man talk like
ideologies
he's a
of whiteness,
victim.
the sense of superiority, all of the issues around
I've
white
been
supremacy.
whited.
These are
Next time someone calls me a white supremacist, I'm going to say I'm not white. I've been whited by the system. I'm totally going to respond like that.
things that I have been conditioned with, but are not really a part of my essential self, my true self. So I kind of look at the whiteness as something that's been laid on me.
Elder
that
did
really
get
is
whitelisted.
not something that describes me in my essence.
So because some of these concepts are rather abstract, we also want to add some stories to bring them to life. So I will share that I used to
Oh,
teach ESOL.
dude. Yes, Ted Cruz is one of the most evil white supremacists that has ever existed in the land of critical race theory. Google Ted Cruz white supremacist right now. Google Ted Cruz white supremacist right now. You let me know what comes up.
At Redmond High School in Central North Carolina. And at that time, Hispanic was listed as a race on surveys. And one day, as I was teaching, I checked my teacher box, and there was a letter from the district informing me that as of now, Hispanic was no longer considered a race, it was an ethnicity. So all of my students who had checked Hispanic as a race were to be handed a survey question asking them for what their race was, on which Hispanic was no longer listed. They had to pick white, Black, Asian, and other factors, other racial identities, which I knew was going to be very difficult, if not impossible, for them to answer, because all their life they had identified as Hispanic, and that was it. So I did call the district to inquire why that was, where that came from, and long story short, after a series of phone calls, I spoke to somebody in Washington, D.C., in the Department of Education, who told me that a group lobbied for Hispanic to become an ethnicity and no longer be kept as a race. And through their lobbying, successful lobbying, now all federal surveys included Hispanic or Latino.
Oh, this is cool. Savrats, thank you for this. Son, guess who? Birth through the moon, females, creates the werewolf. Hidden amongst God's children is the death of all human ancestors and creates one organism being a copy of itself. So essentially, I'm getting a werewolf tattoo, is what you're telling me. I'm kidding. No, that's awesome, though. Thank you for sharing that.
As an ethnicity. So that is there to show that race is not biological. It is social, it is political, cultural, historical, and that all of these factors make it so that being white is something that can change over time. And that was created.
Being white is something that can change over time. How many people watching this training kind of thought they were like, yes, I don't have to be white anymore? I'm pretty sure it is actually if you show me the only way that you will convince me that race is not biological is if you give me an example of two very Black people procreating and producing a pasty white child. If you can't give me an example of that, then race is absolutely biological.
Yeah, good point. We were talking about how, there's a book called How the Irish Became White, and we know as immigrants came to this from Europe to North America, there was a process before they were accepted kind of into whiteness. They were Italians, and
See?
people
what he's
from Europe had a difficult time, and unfortunately, part of what allowed them into the club of whiteness was pretty much.
Yeah, exactly. This is a great point. Richard brings up, what about albinos? What about albinos? Josh, oh my gosh, says the same thing. Is that not biological?
The denigration of Black people. If you would join in with the rest of us to denigrate Black people, then you could be part of the white club.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we still see that
Gross.
today when
Mayo
we consider
is gross.
People who are Hispanic or Latinx, who to buy into whiteness are advocating for the deportation of undocumented Hispanic people. that is a way that they actually buy into whiteness.
So anyone who is Hispanic or Latino who believes that illegal aliens who came here and stayed here illegally should be deported, they are adhering to whiteness. That's what he just said. If you believe that illegal aliens should be deported before they find someone like me and marry them and attain legal status, of course. If you believe that illegal aliens should be deported, you are assimilating to whiteness. Yes, John Morgan, thank you for the reminder. I will look into it again. I don't know why you're blocked on my main channel, but thank you for the reminder, and I will look into it. I promise. But I'm glad you're on my second channel and you're at least able to chat. I promise.
By separating them from people of their own ethnic background, by demonizing them. So these are the same dynamics.
Yeah, yeah. So the way that race is defined and experienced is a result of social and political thought and actions that change over time, and that's what Yassine just said. That it's evolving. You know, what we think of as white and black, what we think of as race has evolved, and that, you know, we read before that there was a time before white was even something that people called themselves, but there was a political a purpose behind kind of assembling people with light skin from Europe together as a block. And that was that started in the 1600s and was codified into law in those early days as to who was white and who was not. All the laws around marriage, and we mentioned it here, that, for example, the law against interracial marriage in Virginia was there held up for over 300 years. You know, just think about that for a moment. You know, and this is part of this.
What I would like to think about is it is important to acknowledge that interracial marriage was illegal, and that's bullshit. Never should have been illegal. But it's also important to acknowledge that in 1967 it became legal. Because we did not start as a perfect union. Our goal is to become a more perfect union. If we can't acknowledge the progress that we've made and the progress that we continue to make, and we just need to apologize all the time, every day, and atone for the sins of our forefathers. And you all know, right, that if we ever did do reparations, nothing would be good enough. Nothing would be good enough. It would start as one thing, and by the way, I could actually be convinced on some form of reparations, but not as direct cash payments. I do not believe that direct cash payments would do anything. If we are going to invest money to try to to account for generational wealth, which I do actually think is kind of a valid argument, if I'm honest, then I want investments in things that are going to uplift the most underserved communities as possible. I want investments in schools. I want investments in programs. I want things that are going to affect the most number of people possible. I do not believe in direct cash payments. I think it's a horrible idea. I think that cash is going to get blown because it's going to go, not all of it, but a lot of it, a significant chunk, would go to people who do not know how to manage money. What happens when lottery winners get a huge cash sum and they don't know how to manage money? That money gets blown very quickly. And then it doesn't actually do anything to fix the problem. But the problem with reparations is nothing would ever be good enough, and there would always be another ask, and there would always be another handout. You know?
False construction of race, this idea of purity that came up, that we should not have, there should not be race mixing because we needed to keep, or whites needed to keep whiteness pure, and all of these laws that we saw throughout the South, the one-drop rules, and, you know, how to identify people that were of mixed race. All of this is not real. It has no real serious biological impact at all. but it had to do with holding on to this construction of whiteness, because whiteness was considered property. Whiteness had value, had legal value.
Whiteness is still considered property.
You had standing as a white person over anyone else. The other thing that we were talking about, Yassine, was this idea of the very famous, often quoted "I Have a Dream" speech of Martin Luther King, which is so often cherry picked to use as a kind of a way to say, well, we shouldn't talk about differences. We shouldn't talk about anyone being unique or different, or the cultural differences, but we should just look at the content of the character. And that has been, and still is, cherry picked as we go through Martin Luther King Day every year. And if you ever listen to the text of the "I Have a Dream" speech, I would call it the bounced check speech, because what Martin Luther King actually talks about is that we were given a check by the Constitution that we would be treated equally, that all men were created equal, and the check bounced. That's what kind of what the speech says if you listen to it. But what's pulled out is this one piece, which is a beautiful sentiment, but it's used so often to hold up this idea of colorblindness, which was really a kind of
what critical race theorists believe is that if Martin Luther King hadn't been assassinated, that he would have basically become the Ibram X. Kendi of his day, and demand that it's not enough to be treated equally. We have to give preferential treatment in order to balance things out. They literally argue, Martin Luther King's daughter or niece, one of the two, literally argues that if he had remained alive, he would have gone much further and would have advocated for equity in order to balance things out. Josh, oh my gosh, says Japan deports anyone who is not there as a citizen or visitor on vacation or something. Does that mean they are white? They are racist? Well, it's funny that you mentioned that, Josh, because Asians are more and more getting grouped in with white people. So yes, these people do actually think that Asians are white, except when they are useful to use. So you remember when the Stop Asian Hate campaign started, when there was a deranged mass shooter with a sex addiction in Atlanta, and they hadn't had a critical race theory crisis in a while? They started the Stop Asian Hate campaign. Now, that shooter in Georgia had nothing to do with Asians. He happened to target massage parlors because he had a sex addiction, but they made it all be about the Asians that he shot, when it wasn't actually about them being Asian. It was because he was deranged and had a sex addiction. But for that moment, Asians became Asian again. They became oppressed again. But as soon as Derek Chauvin got sentenced, it literally happened on the day that Derek Chauvin got sentenced. Asians were white again, and we had to talk about, all black all the time. They only use Asian when it's convenient for them. Savric says, what we perceive, we believe as above, so below. CT pre-programmed thought avenues and creating placebo racism and reacting without foresight. Atheistic heavens and the realm of matter, false idol. Yes, that is true. As above, so below. That's the magician card in the tarot. Hang on, I'll show you guys. If I can find it. The magician card is going to be at the back of the deck. The magician card is going to be at the back of the deck because I'm looking for it. This is Joshua's rule of thumb. The card you're looking for will always be the very last card in the deck when you're looking for it. That's the Fool, not the Magician. God dang. Hang on. Hang on. I'm going to find it. I'm determined. I'm not giving up. I should have started looking at the back. Should have gone the other direction. It's going to be at the goddamn back. I found it. That much of the deck was left when I found it. It's at the back of the deck. As above, so below. He's pointing above, so below. Okay.
a form of ignorance, to try to ignore that there are differences between us. And those are beautiful bits of diversity. but ignoring also how race has been utilized to divide us too.
Are there any clarifying questions or comments regarding race as a social construction?
We're already putting everyone to sleep here. Is this what's happening?
Yes, you are. Indeed. At least they're self-aware.
If
We have
you
to
have a
appreciate
question,
that.
raise your hand or a comment on this particular
We have to
tenet.
appreciate the self-awareness.
Well, that's fine.
It's okay. You can, if you think about something as we get to the end of the next one, you can definitely ask. Oh, wait a second. Brandy's and Jay are definitely not asleep. Okay, thanks. Thanks.
Okay. All right. So tenet 2. So individuals can be racist or racist, but racism is perpetuated on a societal and structural level.
So let's see. Let's ask. I
Yeah.
can't see a lot of people. Mark, you're
It
looking
is
like
very
you're right there. Would
spiritual.
you like
That's
to
right,
read that
Jess.
for us?
Kabbalah is very spiritual. It is.
Although individuals can indeed be racist, racism and its outcomes are perpetuated in society through social process above and beyond individual actions, including through cultural norms, institutional rules, and laws and regulations.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's a voice coming from Wyoming right now. Right. Thank you for being here, Mark. So this is really a quote from, and we'll see Paula Lantz. We used her article. It was very, very well written, and we can give you the citation for that if you'd like to look at it. But she looks at critical race theory from a medical perspective, how it affects medical care. So you can see how this theory is important to every field out there.
So one story I wanted to share regarding that actually comes from a podcast from This American Life. This episode is called "The Problem We'll All Live With," and that's a part 1. It's a piece of investigative journalism put together by Nicole Hannah-Jones, who is also one of the main creators behind the 1619 Project. But this podcast is a bit older than that. I think it's 2013. So this story tells, so this episode tells the story of a school district, mostly Black, or I should say overwhelmingly Black, that lost its accreditation, meaning that the students were doing so poorly that all of the students who graduated from that school system, their high school diploma was no longer recognized as having a value, and it did not allow them to go to university because the school system lost its accreditation. One of the unintended consequences of this is that the students were then able to make the claim that the state needed to provide them with access to another school. Therefore, they started being bused to...
What an argument for school choice. What an argument for school choice. Now, this happened in the 60s. So this is a different thing, and this is going to have, I'm sure this is going to talk about busing and all this stuff, which is fine. But I'm just saying, I think it's quite, I would, you know what I would love more than anything? I would like to allow every Black child in the country today in 2021 that is going to an underperforming school. I would like to allow them to make the choice to attend any public school they want. I would like to offer that to every Black child in the country. I would actually like to offer that to every child in the country, but that includes all Black children. So I think we can fix systemic racism overnight by allowing every Black school child in the country to go to any school they want and the state has to deal with that because the money would follow the student and wouldn't go directly to the schools. It would follow the student. I think that sounds like a great idea. In fact, I like it so much. I don't just want to do it for Black children. I want to do it for all children because sometimes white kids are born into underserved school districts as well, and maybe we would like to give them the choice to go to a better school. I think it's a really great idea.
An overwhelmingly white, affluent district.
Oh, wait. Did the Jesse Smollett verdict come back? Did this come back? What was it? I haven't been paying attention. Did the verdict come back? What was it?
And this was basically integration. And throughout that process, there were several town hall meetings, and white parents came to that school board and town hall meetings to complain about Black students coming into their district. And if you want to listen to that podcast, you
always
will
on
hear
Fridays. Always
the
on
hate
Fridays.
in the voices of the parents. You will hear echo of the Boston I would say bus riots in the aggressiveness of the parents talking about kids, Black kids as threats, talking about the security of their children. And this was just about 10 years ago. The outcome was that politicians, under the pressure of the parents, decided to create a whole new accreditation. That school system where Black students came from was
the verdict
then
is in, but they
labeled
haven't said it yet. Okay.
non-accredited.
Well, let me know if they
So
say
it was not unaccredited.
They still could.
It was non-accredited, meaning that there was simply no accreditation status.
If they start to come back with the verdict, can you let me know? And we can pause real quick. We'll see if Joshua's prediction is correct. Joshua thought that he would get like something, but probably not the whole thing. Like there'd be some sort of compromise or something.
Anymore. Not that he had lost it. Through that decision, the Black students no longer had a right to ask to be bused to a school that would actually serve them.
Let's give them that right.
They were forced to go back to their school and to their district and stay in a school district that would continue to fail them. So when we speak of racism as institutional, critical race theory refers.
Nicole Hannah-Jones, who they are literally quoting with this whole little story, Nicole Hannah-Jones is adamantly against school choice. I don't know why Nicole Hannah-Jones, creator of the 1619 Project, doesn't want Black children to be able to go to whatever school they want. She is vehemently anti-school choice. Nicole Hannah-Jones today would be one of the people who said, no, we're not going to allow kids to change schools. They have to stay where they are. You want to talk to me about systemic racism? You want to talk to me about Nicole Hannah-Jones? She opposes allowing every Black child in the country to choose what school they want to go to. That sounds a little racist for me. Nicole Hannah-Jones is a racist. Pass it on.
To this kind of actions. Something that is not her about a slur, about somebody saying something to another individual. We're talking about laws and rules in place that continue to deny a chance at a fair life and future for a people of color.
I have not lost weight. I probably gained weight. I don't know. I didn't even weigh myself anymore. But thank you. I appreciate
one really excellent example, in that happened throughout the South in integration. And another issue
I need to go back to
related
the gym
to
is
that
what needs to happen.
was something as simple as swimming pools. That really, in the book Cast, and some of you have probably read this wonderful book Cast. There's a section there talking about what happened to illustrate this. That the swimming pools were owned by cities and townships and counties, and they were built with taxpayers' money for everyone in that area to benefit from. But Black people were very rarely ever allowed to use them at all, if they were. And at integration, when the rules could no longer be applied to exclude Black people from the swimming pools, and I mean, there are stories that if a Black child by some chance jumped into a white swimming pool, they would drain the pool and scrub the pool before anyone could use it again.
Yeah, that's real
that was the
racist.
kind of
Why don't you want black children today
feeling
to be able to
of,
choose their schools?
the very visceral feeling of, the sense that white people felt about black people, that there was that they were not clean, right, and that we couldn't, there couldn't be anything that touched us, that touched them. Really, very much like the caste system in India in that sense. So once integration occurred, a lot of swimming pools were filled with dirt, and so nobody could use them. That was one of the solutions, right? If we're not going to allow integration of the
Dude, I cannot do hot yoga. Hot yoga is too much. I understand the benefits. I used to try to do I used to do yoga every day. I used to do yoga every single day. It was one of the first things I did in the morning. I got super flexible. I was almost doing the handstands and shit. I can't do hot yoga. It's too much. I understand the principle.
swimming pools, so we'll just fill them in, right? And so somebody had to pay for that, and everybody lost the use of the swimming pools. And of course, at the same time, private clubs were started for those who had the money to do this. Private clubs were swimming pools like golf clubs and others where white kids could go and swim. But the kids that didn't have the means to do that would not have access to swimming and going to pools. I'm thinking of, just as we're talking about these stories of structural racism and how this is an issue of dispute that these things continue to go on. But like I'm thinking now of the Reggie, you're on tonight, and Lisa, it's nice to see you here too. We're working on here in Ashboro on how we can move this Confederate statue from its position in front of the courthouse.
Ooh, moving a
just to
Confederate
hear
statue.
The kind of argument that goes on.
Ooh, moving a Confederate statue, that will fix racism. They're not trying. Do you notice that they are not putting 1 ounce of energy into trying to allow black children today to go to whatever school they want, but they'll remove a Confederate statue, and that's going to fix systemic racism. Why aren't they fighting to allow every black child to go to whatever school they want? That'll do more to end systemic racism than moving a statue.
That denies that it represents white supremacy and that it has any negative effect on people of color, is the argument. And so right up to today, to do these things, there has.
Now, to be really clear, I actually have mixed feelings about the whole Confederate statue debate. I really do. Like, I kind of think, part of me is like, do you really need to memorialize that? Can we move the statue into a museum? Come on, man. Can we get a better statue with new figures that have come about? So I really do actually have mixed feelings about the Confederate statues. I do not have mixed feelings about the founding fathers. They shouldn't be screwing with any of the founding father statues or statues of Abraham Lincoln. But why are they even P.S. Why are they even going after statues of Abraham Lincoln? That's a completely counterintuitive to this whole thing. But I do have mixed feeling about the statue thing. I just think we also need to acknowledge that moving a statue is not going to actually change anyone's life in any tangible way at all. Not at all. Allowing black children to go to whatever school they want, that will change people's lives in a very positive way.
Has to be you have to get lawyers, you have to look at documents and ownership, you have to do all kinds of things because of the structure that racism has put up. Another example, just the last thing before we go on, is here in my subdivision where Dawn and I live, and Skip, I don't believe Skip is on here tonight, but
they all live together like a
called
commune.
Greystone.
Like a commune.
Skip found on his deed a clause that says that no person of African descent shall live in the said dwelling except as a servant.
Yeah, that's kind of bullshit.
So that
should be taken out.
A legal clause put into all of the deeds in this area, and apparently they are still on the deeds when Skip, his African American friend, went to the Registrar of Deeds and say, "Why is this still on our deeds?" They said, "Well, it was struck down by the Supreme Court, and we just didn't feel like we needed to take it off. It still just sits there on the deeds." Right? But that's another form of structural racism, to exclude people and then to put in provisions for, okay, Black people can be here or live here, but only in a subservient role. So
yeah, they really should remove
right
that. There's
where
no
I
reason
live
that can't
right
be
now.
removed. Come on. Like, be better.
So racism operates at 3 different levels. The first one is institutional and structural. Second one is personally mediated racism between individuals. And the last one is internalized racism. So
Just to be really clear, Hoodoo Guru, I'm not actually arguing that only Black school children. I'm not actually arguing that only Black school children should be able to have school choice. I'm arguing that all children should be able to have school choice, but all children, as it turns out, includes Black children. So I'm cool with specifying specifically that giving every child school choice would specifically impact Black children. Because sometimes it's okay to frame arguments that way. Sometimes it's okay to frame an argument that sounds like you're being racist, but you're like, I want to give every Black child the choice to go to a school in a really wealthy neighborhood. Now that sounds like you're being racist because it also assumes that Black children all live in poor communities exclusively, which of course they don't. Like, I want to give every Black child the chance to go to a rich white school. Well, actually, I want to give every child the choice to go to whatever school they want. And if it results in a lot of Black kids in underserved schools going to better schools, then fine. It's okay to argue like that sometimes.
basically address the first aspect through institutions and structures. Second one that deals with personally mediated racism between individuals. These are the actions one-on-one. Basically, our common understanding of racism will be number 2. The idea that it's just interactions between 2 individuals, which is important. And the third one is internalized. And that's the idea that the targets of racism have accepted the negative messages sent by the members of the dominant group, by white folks, about their worth, deservedness, or abilities. So these messages are so broadcast everywhere that people actually start to believe that about themselves. So these are the 3 aspects of racism that critical race theory highlights: institutions, between individuals, and internal.
Right. And I was just going to add, I know a lot of people who are on this call tonight have worked in the field of anti-racism for decades and decades, and we are very familiar with these terms that are
probably
that are so important and that are very, very well known, excuse me, to us. And it's interesting that I think number 2 is really what the opponents of critical race theory focus on. They kind of deny the institutional.
Hang on. No. It's not that we focus on it. It's that we do not accept your bullshit redefinition of racism. You fundamentally changed the definition of racism because the left has done this for decades. The left for decades. I talk about this in my book that's coming out next year. Pre-order now on Amazon. It's called Actively Unwoke. I talk about this. The left has done this for decades. Every single conservative politician for decades has been labeled as a racist, as a political weapon. The problem is that people started to understand that racism was going away, that society was fundamentally less racist now than it was 50 years ago. And so the effectiveness of using race as a political weapon started diminishing. So what happened when it was no longer effective to call your political opponent a racist? What happened when they couldn't label John McCain a racist because John McCain has a brown daughter? I'm not saying John McCain's the end all be all. I'm just saying they tried really hard to label John McCain a racist. John McCain literally has a brown daughter. What happened when the effectiveness started diminishing? They invented a new form of racism. Just because you invented a new form of racism does not mean that we are required to accept as fact your redefinition of the term of racism. Remember, guys, you are never under any obligation to accept the rules that the left wants you to play by. You are not under any. I hear conservatives do this all the time. They're like, well, the left says that people who are white can never like people that you can't be racist against people who are white. The left says that you can never be racist against people who are white. I'm like, why are you accepting their definition? Why are you allowing the left to set the ground rules? I do believe that people can be racist against people who are white, just like they can be racist against people who are black or Native American or Asian or Hispanic or any other derivation. Why are you allowing the left to set the rules? Stop allowing them to set the rules. Savert says, how does it feel now to know the sun-moon equation and evolution? Well, I mean, I'm going to be honest. I kind of like already knew a lot of this stuff. So I wouldn't say there's been like a revelation. But I appreciate your thoughts and I'll check out your channel. I see you're trying to put a link, but like YouTube doesn't allow for that. Sorry. But please guys, check out Savert's channel if you want more, about the spiritual stuff. And thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it.
Structural racism, they don't even bring up or consider the effect that racism has on the victims of racism, but they think about it only as between individuals, which is just one part of what racism is. And so it's kind of beautiful that that critical race theory breaks these down like this. I see we have one hand. Do we want to wait till we finish this tenet too before we get to a question, Yassine? Or
Okay.
Okay. So this is a statement from Cherry Steinwender, and some of you may have heard she spoke in Durham on last Friday night. We had her here on Common Threads last year from the Center for the Healing of Racism in Houston, Texas. But she coined this term: prejudice is an individual's emotional commitment to ignorance. And the equation, I don't know if that's Cherry's or herself, it's been pretty commonly known, but that prejudice is something that all people can have, regardless of whatever ethnicity or race you are. But when you add power to that prejudice, then that becomes racism. And that's when it becomes a much more dangerous form of the disease. Should we ask someone to read this? Who would like to volunteer to read? I can't see everybody at once. Okay, thank you, Kathy.
Rather than focus on racism as primarily being a problem of personally mediated racism or individual bad apples on the police force, in hospitals, clinics, in schools, in banks, or in neighborhoods, critical race theory elucidates how institutions, systems, and policies can be designed in ways that reinforce, codify, and perpetuate exposures, risks, and opportunities that differ across socioeconomic and racial groups.
Yeah, thank you. It makes me think about redlining and who can get loans or not. We there's the black tax. It kind of goes on and on when we think about the structural racism that has held back opportunity. Dawn is really involved in agriculture, and she's been reading a book that talks about what happened to black farmers. not being able to get federal loans. Winnie, you're also involved with that. What happened across the country for decades and decades of not having access to what they should have had access to because of structural institutionalized racism.
Segregation is also a great example of structural racism.
Mm-hmm.
Oh God! Ah!
I think it's time for our video.
Yeah,
we've actually watched this on our channel.
look at a piece.
We've
of
actually
this.
watched
Yeah.
this. No! I apologize in advance for subjecting you all to Joy Reid and Kimberly Crenshaw in the same video. But no, Sin reminds everyone to mount that like button on whatever platform you're watching on, whether that be YouTube or Odyssey or Rockfin or even Facebook. This is a good time to remind people that if you're not subscribed on whatever platform you're watching on, please make sure you subscribe today. Please make sure you turn on notifications, especially on YouTube. You might actually get notified of my videos. Please mount that like button, not for Joy Reid. If you dislike Joy Reid, you mount that like button. We are not, oh God, I can't even. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry we have to do this. I didn't know. I'm sorry.
Joining me now is Kimberly Crenshaw, co-founder and executive director of the African American Policy Forum, and the legal scholar who coined the term critical race theory. So it is your fault, madame. I tripped over the curb this morning and I went, critical race theory? Damn you! You tripped me on the curb. It does everything bad. And the cicadas, y'all really need to stop with the cicadas critical race theory. That is not nice.
We can throw everything in the bag, everything in the bag.
So I just wrote down a few of the notes of what people are calling critical race theory: Marxism, racism, bigoted. Let's start with the Marxism. That's their favorite one. They're using that every single time. And I hate to ask dumb questions, so please don't think that I'm dumb. Is critical race theory Marxism?
Well, you know what? Here's the thing, Joy. Critical race theory.
Listen, if you are asked if critical race theory is Marxism and your immediate answer is not no, then I don't know what to tell you. I know this sound sucks right now, guys. This is on their end. It's not on mine. I'm sorry. It's on their end.
Is not so much a thing. It's a way of looking at a thing. It's a way of looking at race. It's a way of looking at why, after so many decades,
Joy Reid is a
centuries, actually,
liar.
since the
She's a
emancipation,
liar.
we have patterns of inequality that are enduring. They are stubborn. And the point of critical race theory originally was to think and talk about how law contributed to the subordinate status of African Americans, of indigenous people, and of an entire group of people who were coming to our shores from Asia. And the point was, quite frankly, to understand the problem in order to intervene.
Wait. Did the verdict come back? Is he guilty? Did Jesse Sumlin get found guilty? Sweet. Sumlin guilty of everything or just a couple of things? I should do my own research and stop knitting for a second. Here, I'll go find out. Hang on, I'll go find out.
The greatest hopes for our republic.
Expect you guys to do my work for me.
Even though these hopes were encoded in law. So critical race theory just inherits the beliefs and the hopes of Frederick Douglass.
Joshua was right again.
Martin Luther King, who basically want the law to do for the free people.
Yeah, Joshua was right. Joshua was right again. Joshua's always right. Guilty on 5 charges, not guilty on 1. So Joshua guilty on 5 out of 6. So Joshua said he wasn't going to get found guilty on everything. What wasn't he found guilty on? Was he not found guilty on like the biggest thing? What was he not found guilty on? Hang on. I can do my own work. Jesse Sumlin, guilty. I'm trying to find. Okay, I can't see anyone specifying what he was. Does anyone know what charge he was not found guilty on? Good. Now you know what's going to happen, though. Oh, God. Joy Reid's on in 30 minutes. Should we watch Joy Reid's live reaction to the Jesse Smollett verdict? I can do it. Should we pause happy hour to watch Joy Reid's live reaction to Jesse Smollett being found guilty on 5 out of 6 charges? If you guys want me to, I will. I will broadcast that live. I'll get logged in under Comcast. Placebo racism, projecting boundaries of perception onto others, believing it to be real, creating something from nothing and believing. Yes, this is exactly correct. This is exactly correct. You are 100% right. What they've done is they claimed racism was real over and over and over and over and over again until people started to actually believe that they were racist. Okay, guys, I promise I'm probably going to have to ask Victor for my Comcast password yet again, because I always have to ask Victor for my Comcast password. But I will broadcast. I will get set up. Joy Reid goes live in 35 minutes. We will watch Joy Reid's reaction to the Jesse Smollett verdict live. We're doing it live. We're doing it live for happy hour. But let's continue in the meantime.
What the law did for enslavers. And we picked that up in the 70s and 80s after the civil rights movement to say,
I might start a different video. I might start a different stream. Okay. Just so you guys know, I might start a completely different stream on my channel, not do it so that other people can know too. Maybe everyone else wants to watch Joy Reid live. Who knows? But I'm going to work it out. We're going to watch happy hour in the meantime.
okay, so now we've got this big civil rights movement. We have all these laws in the books. But things really aren't looking as different as they should if we are really the society that we say we are. So we put about the task of understanding how law wasn't just a neutral referee. Law wasn't always on our side. In fact, law was less on our side than more on our side. And we wanted to tell these stories in order to do
probably get taken down for like a copyright violation or something.
In the Constitution. That's what's in critical race theory.
I don't care.
So
we're doing it live anyway.
Is there a K through 12 curriculum that right now is being taught? I'm sorry, I know it's a dumb question, but is there a K through 12 curriculum on critical race theory that's being taught in schools?
Yes.
Well, look, Joy, if it was news to most Americans that critical race
yes,
theory
there
was
is.
in K-12, it was news to me too. I'm one of the co-authors of one of the few books on critical race theory. I think I would know if we were being taught in K-12. I mean, basically, critical race theory, classic critical race theory is a law school course, and it's really, not taught as widely as I would hope it would. Yeah. But here's the deal. This is not about whether anything called critical race theory is in K-12. What they're calling critical race theory doesn't exist anyway. It is a backlash effort to reverse the racial reckoning unlike any we've seen in our lifetime. And as you pointed out at the beginning, they can't say, we're for racism. They can't say Derek Chauvin should have killed George Floyd with his hand in his pocket, looking like he was completely without a care in the world. They couldn't say that. So they looked around and found a strange sounding theory that they could put all of the grievances and
Kimberly Crenshaw is a dirty, dirty liar. We've proved that several times on this channel.
This boogeyman. And if our side can't really understand what's going on,
what is my Comcast password?
It's worked in the past. It worked to end Reconstruction, and it can work to end this reckoning too.
And a gentleman named Chris Rufo, who's very vigorously requested to be on the show. We're gonna take him up on it and let him come on this week.
Yeah, Chris Rufo. Chris Rufo. Anytime. Oh, Victor's so good. Victor texted me the confirmation code for my Comcast password. Anytime Chris Rufo is mentioned on happy hour, what happens? What happens when Chris Rufo is mentioned? You get a free bingo square. You get a free bingo square, and you get a free bingo square, and you get a free bingo square every single time. They're already complaining about Jesse Smollett on MSNBC, by the way. I got logged in. Thank you, Victor. Every single time Chris Rufo is mentioned, you get a free bingo square on happy hour. That's how we roll.
Critical race theory into the public conversation and are steadily driving up negative perceptions. We will eventually turn it toxic as we put all the various cultural insanities under that brand category, to which Fox News has mentioned critical race theory nearly 1,300 times in the past 3.5 months. And we've now discovered that a lot of these parents that are showing up at school boards, inveighing against their children being taught that they're, racist. Turns out they are actually Republican activists, not just regular old parents.
That's not true. That's like provably not true, Joy. That's a lie.
So I guess my last question to you would be, what do you worry is sort of the purpose of what they're trying to do? This is political. It is about getting out white, voters in 2022.
And I think the rest of this discussion is more towards what we'll do in next month.
Next month, yes, yeah.
We wanted to have at least some of the words of one of the creators of critical race theory for us to better understand that.
Right, and Carolyn, you've been very patient. I saw that your hand was up before. We just wanted to wait till we kind of got to this end of this tenet 2. What did you want to ask or speak to, Carolyn?
Just how difficult it is to, when we talk about racism, there's so many different points of view.
Hey guys, I'm sorry if I'm missing anything in the chat. I'm anxiously trying to get set up for Joy Reid. Half hour.
Difficult to have a conversation, almost. Now we had a swimming pool issue in a little town here in St. Paul club.
Naruto, we know, found guilty. 5 or 6 charges. Half hour. We're gonna go live to watch Joy Reid reaction.
About 47 years ago. Well, the doctor that joined me, which I interviewed and recommended, and we worked together for several years in St. Paul's. He was Black, and we got a lot of bad looks until people realized that we were 2 new doctors in town. Then it was okay that we were together, but at lunch, But the things have changed a lot, and one of the projects that Brad decided to do was to have get a pool, and then everybody donated, and of course it ended up being mostly on the Black side of town and for Black kids, but that solved the problem of no swimming pool without challenging too many things at once, I never went to either pool, but to speak of, I know I never got to the Gap pool because I'd already moved to Lumberton by then when he got that done.
Wow, those are great examples, Carolyn, real world examples right here in North Carolina. So that's wonderful for you to share those. Thank you so much. It really it adds to what we're trying to speak to here.
Yes.
Dan Hankins.
Yes, I have a couple things to say.
Yes.
When you were when they were talking about the stories with the swimming pool, it made me think about the Mr. Rogers story from the late 60s, where he put his feet in the swimming pool with Officer Clemens, and how greatly that spoke, not only to kids, but to adults. And
that was a great episode
that made.
How could Mr. Rogers have done that if there was systemic
You
racism?
know, and part of my interest in being in this group tonight, I'm Jay's mom, by the way.
Okay. Welcome.
So I'm from Iowa. But anyway, unfortunately, our governor signed the law into place July 1st that banned the critical race theory here in Iowa.
Fortunately. Fortunately is the word you're
I'm
looking
here
for.
to learn more about what this,
Look at me. I'm like triple tasking
can
right now.
mean
Setting up a
and
stream, creating a thumbnail.
where to take it going forward. So
Well, thank you, Jan, for being here. And it's painful
knitting
to
at the
see
same
this
time
happening.
if I
I think there are
didn't use my
27
hands to do
states
this.
where this is kind of moving forward in. And in North Carolina, our governor did veto it, so it hasn't moved forward here. But Tennessee, last night I was on a call talking about Tennessee. It's really terrible right now. Teachers can be fined if they mention certain topics.
Good.
Find money, you know. So, but that is something we're going to talk in more detail about next month, about some of these attacks and things. But it is really, it hurts to see this happening.
Yes, I'm sure it's terribly
and
painful
something
for
I
you.
would like to reiterate is the fact that critical race theory is not.
It's not
taught
shown
in
because I took it
schools.
off because
It
it
is not
was
taught in K-12.
it's
So when these bans
like people were
take
getting off on
place,
it too much,
they're
and I
actually
just don't
banning
want to pay
something that's
attention to
not taking
numbers, so
place.
I just took it
So
off.
these bans are
People are
about
getting off on it too
something
much. I'm like,
else, and
doesn't really
we will
matter to
speak
me.
about
As long as
that
you guys are
in
happy, I don't
next
care.
month.
Right.
And Courtney
Court-
Stephens, have your hand up?
Hey, Courtney.
Hey, yeah, I know you're going to talk about it next month, but so I have a 5th grader and a 1st grader, and I'm in Mecklenburg County in North Carolina. I did ask, because I'm in Chuck's, one of his courses at UNCG, and I asked our principal, I was like, so what's going on with critical race theory? And this was through email. And he said, well, how about we'll just talk about it, not on email. He actually told me, I really like him. He told me that he has done things that, obviously you said there's no curriculum for critical race theory, but he does things like they don't acknowledge Columbus Day in our school. My daughter just got done reading a book called Esperanza Rising. She's in 5th grade. It's about a young girl who comes over and immigrates and why she had to
I have the
immigrate to
stream
America
set
and
up.
what happens.
I have the
They
stream
just
set up.
started
I'm going to
reading
change
another
streams
book
at 7.
about a
And we're
young
going to go
boy
watch we're
who
going to watch
was in
Joy Reid.
Birmingham in the
Probably a
60s
few minutes before.
during,
We'll get through this a little bit.
during civil rights movement. And
Okay, guys, I have a stream. We're going to switch streams at like 5 of 7 my time. I think it'll be fun. I apologize for everyone who's getting a lot of buzzwords on bingo today, but I think that we can all acknowledge that watching Joy Reid after Jussie Smollett is found guilty is a greater good. It is a greater good. And so the stream has been set up. We will watch this for like 20 more minutes, and then we're going to transition into a different stream to watch what I'm sure will be an epic meltdown. They're already crying about it. Ari Melber's already crying about it.
and all the things that happened to him, you know what I mean? So he's actually doing things and, taking teachers through professional development that doesn't yell critical race theory, but he's doing good things. So I'm so happy that we're here because, I didn't get to learn all of the things my daughters and son will eventually be learning.
Oh, thank you for
So some
sharing.
teachers are being pretty sneaky, which I like.
Well, we appreciate hearing that, and
There's hope out there. There is hope.
The
Yes.
copium will be
Some
reckless
places.
abandon. I don't actually like
And,
using cope as an insult, if I'm honest.
Kathy
But
has her hand up.
Yes, Kathy.
Yeah, let me lower my hand. The thing is, that can change with the next school board meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Things are so fluid and they're so reactionary that you send in a bunch of activists, and they could be paid activists for all we know, to some of these school board meetings, and decisions that are rational and logical in one meeting can be overturned. We're seeing this in state after state, so that a minority of people can rule the majority. And I think we're seeing this in counties, in towns, in counties, in states.
yes,
and it's
activists can
moving
overrule you. Oh my
even towards
God.
the federal level.
As though we
so that
haven't been
in
dealing with
federal
this for
government,
a
we
long
see
time.
minority ruling.
I don't actually
and
know if I'm violating
blocking
YouTube's terms of service by
majority,
streaming Joy Reid's show live, but we're going to do it
thinking.
anyway. And if I
So
have to get
I
a
think
strike
we're at
for
a
it, fine. I
very,
don't give a fuck.
critical time.
I've gotten strikes before. I have no strikes on my
in
channel
our
right now. I can
country
afford
at
a
all
strike. I can
levels,
afford a week
the,
off. It's fine.
Town and city, county, state, and federal level.
Yeah. So true, Kathy. Just looking here, we had major issues with masking mandates in Randolph County.
If anyone knows how badly I might
parents
actually
coming
see, I
out,
feel like I'm small enough that I can violate
really
YouTube's terms of
vehemently
service and
against
it'll be okay.
masking mandate, but the school board still voted it in by one vote. That they arrived at the school board meetings with guns on their hips. You know, I mean, they were adamant. They were screaming and yelling. And President of
I'm not even paying attention to this. I'm already focused on Joy Reid. My mind has already transitioned over to Joy Reid. Other than guilty white people. George Andre Velasco Nunez says, if racism was so commonplace, Jussie wouldn't need to fake it. Exactly. Exactly. If anyone could tell me how much I might be violating YouTube's terms of service by streaming MSNBC Live, that would be helpful. But I don't care. I'm doing it anyway. Ask forgiveness, not permission.
NAACP said, if Black people came out to a school board meeting and acted like that, what would happen? You know, the state police would be pulled in a second, you know. So this is part of this institutionalized racism and what is acceptable to one group and not to another. Yeah. So.
And also another
I'm monitoring
point is that
MSNBC.
this is about power. It is not about numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So no matter how small the group, if they are the ones who hold political power, institutional power, they will sway things their way.
Right, right. So we need to move along so we at least cover the 4 tenets tonight. So number 3 is racism is commonplace. So this is critical race theory. Tenet 3, racism is commonplace, normal rather than rare and abnormal. And so we can see, you know, we know the argument from the opponents of critical race theory is the opposite of this. Kathy, maybe would you read this statement? Or you read before. Let's see if we can get somebody else. Who would like to read this?
I can read it.
Kathy, good to see you.
Thank you. Because the differential treatment of individuals based upon racial classification is embedded within social systems and institutions, including public policy and law, racism is commonplace rather than rare and aberrant. As such, racism is omnipresent in society, which CRT refers to as normal.
Thank you.
Thanks. So I think this is really important, and you know, I do not have the perspective of a person of color, but I suspect that this is absolutely what most people of color, the view on the world. And I can't speak for anyone, or maybe someone in the call would like to say this, but I think.
Well, Crowder watches like CNN Live, doesn't he?
It is seen in everything.
I think it'll be fine.
All around,
it'll
and
be
it's
fine.
not just having a negative attitude that that makes you see it everywhere, but it's present in everything that we do. Especially every controversial issue that we're facing in our country right
racism
now.
is their god. That's exactly right. They want racism to be normal because racism is their god. This is why you know that these people are not interested in defeating racism. They're not interested in fixing racism. If they fixed racism, they would have nothing else to do. Racism is their god. They worship racism. They look for racism in everything. They seek out racism. They want racism to be real so badly they created it. It is a cult. And for a lot of people in the cult, it is sad. It is a sad thing. It is a sad thing that when people get sucked into this. I've seen so many of my friends get sucked into this. They become shells of their former selves. If you haven't watched Invasion of the Body Snatchers lately, like watch Invasion of the Body Snatchers because it is freaky. That's what they become. They become pod people. It's a cult. And a lot of people in the cult are victims. They're victims. And we need to remember that. They're victims of this. Now, they have their own agency too, but it's like, this is a mass psychosis.
So I'll read this one. This is sometimes misinterpreted to mean that CRT purports it is normal or expected for white people to be racist. The point
it does
here
say that.
is that because differential access by race,
it literally
to resources,
says that.
Opportunities, benefits, and burdens is embedded within many aspects of our institutions, and legal policy systems, racial inequality continues to be reproduced outside of acts
Robin
of
DiAngelo
personally
literally says
mediated
that.
racism.
So this guy is lying, or he doesn't know.
To link
Either
this
way, it
back to
doesn't
the
really
story I
matter.
had shared earlier, racism is the idea or is the fact that many school systems are still segregated today, that they know that this is not only that Black students are separated from white students, but that they attend schools that are not funded, schools in which teachers do not have the best qualifications to teach, far from that, and that therefore they are less likely to graduate from high school, less likely to access jobs because they don't have a degree, or to go to university. So again, this is not talking about individuals or individual white people. This is the idea that racism is normal is that it's spread out through institutions, and that people of color experience it in every institution in this country, education being one.
Ari Melber right now is watching, is talking about the show Secession. Does anyone watch that show? I love that show. Secession is a great show. And they're talking about how it skewers conservative mobile Rupert Murdoch. Secession does not skewer Rupert Murdoch. It doesn't. I'm sorry. Secession makes Rupert Murdoch look like a boss.
Right. And I think that applies to, say, charter schools, which are definitely I know in our county are predominantly white. Religious schools, which also get state funding now, that have very few kids of color in it. Some of the schools that were actually established during integration as a place for white flight. Parents that didn't want their kids to be in school with Black kids started religious schools, and those still exist today in many places. So those are also institutional, and it even becomes worse when the state funds these schools and funds their curriculum, which often really whitewashes things like what happened with slavery and with
It
racism
doesn't whitewash
and
things that happen
Civil
with
War,
slavery.
that kind of
All
stuff.
schools
Those
talk about
histories
slavery.
are
That's
really
such bullshit.
distorted in the textbooks in many of those schools.
Such bullshit.
So as a story, I actually wanted to share some statistics, and that
All right.
particular
Guys, I am so distracted. I am so distracted by the fact that we're all going to watch Joy Reid together in a couple minutes that I can't even focus on this anymore. So I apologize if you are still ingrained in this presentation. I have to stop, though. I do. I have to stop for right now. Now, as a reminder, the reason we are stopping happy hour early is that Jussie Smollett has been found guilty. And I'm going to start another stream on my main YouTube channel. If you're watching on a different channel, if you're watching on Odyssey, Rockfin, or if you're watching on Actively Unwoke, come to my main YouTube channel. Come to my main YouTube channel. Just my name, Carlin Borisenko. And we together are going to start a stream. It's going to new stream to watch together Joy Reid. We are going to watch Joy Reid's show together to react live to her reaction about how Jussie Smollett has been found guilty. But please make sure that you join my locals. Please help me to get to 100 new local supporters this month. It would really help me out, guys. It really, really would. This whole stupid, false, anti-Semitic bullshit has cost me a lot, and it's over nonsense, and I know a lot of you know that. So if you've been waiting to join my locals, now's the time, man. We're going to do lots of cool stuff in 2020. The link is at the top of the chat on YouTube. It is in the description if you're watching on another channel. Please come and join my locals. My locals are the best, best, best. Don't worry about Rumble's influence on locals. If it becomes bad, we'll figure it out. But right now, locals is great. And I strongly would urge all of you to join. Please mount that like button on the way out the door and come and join me in my other stream that I'm going to go start immediately upon leaving this one. And we're going to go watch Joy Reid together, and it's going to be great. And we will finish this presentation another time. I promise there's a part 2 we have to get to as well. But I'm sorry if you guys were playing buzzword bingo and it was working out for you. I'm sorry. This is like an emergency, guys. You can't predict this stuff. And I know you all understand because you all voted for this. So let's go to my other stream that is on my main YouTube channel. Right now, I'm going to start it up in just a minute. Get in there. There's already 30 people waiting. Let's watch Joy Reid together. It'll be fun. All right, guys. I will see you in the other stream very, very soon. Thank you.